This is for the de Rolos. And let me say, you were the one I was least looking forward to.
Percival Friedrichstein von Musil-Klazowski de Rolo III, but I will call him Percy, isn't just another Critical Role character. He's a living example of how loss, vengeance, and ultimately redemption can shape a person's very soul. Once the third of 7 children in the noble de Rolo family of Whitestone, Percy's life was shattered by a brutal coup that took everything from him. Left alone with nothing but grief and anger, he set out on a path fueled by a burning desire for revenge. But as we follow his journey, it becomes clear that Percy's story isn't about perfect retribution. It's about a man struggling to reclaim his humanity. Behind the mask of the hardened gunslinger lies a person haunted by guilt, wrestling with literal inner demons, and trying to prove that he's more than the sum of his tragedies. In this video, we'll explore how Percy's arc, his fall into darkness, the dangerous pact he made with Orthax, and his eventual decision to embrace redemption challenges our traditional ideas of heroism. We'll see how his transformation shows that true strength isn't about holding on to pain, but about having the courage to let it go and start anew. Percy's story starts in a world of privilege. He was born into the de Rolo family, the esteemed rulers of Whitestone. As a young noble, he had every advantage, a promising future filled with learning and invention, but that life was brutally ripped away. One fateful day, the Briarwoods, ruthless manipulators with dark magic, overran his home, leaving behind nothing but chaos and despair. Imagine the shock. A once beloved heir suddenly finds himself alone, haunted by the carnage of his family's slaughter. Percy is left with an overwhelming sense of guilt and the crushing belief that he should have been able to do more. Instead of a life of honour, he is now burdened with a desperate need for retribution. The pain of loss becomes his fuel, and in that dark moment, a dangerous idea takes root. In the midst of his grief, Percy's inner world starts to fracture. He becomes consumed by a single, all-encompassing desire: to make those responsible pay. And it's here that a shadow begins to creep in. While lost in his sorrow, he encounters a force that offers him what he believes he needs: a way to wield power and control the chaos around him. This is when the pact with the shadow entity Orthax comes into play, a pact that marks the beginning of Percy's descent into darkness. The transformation is subtle at first. Percy starts channeling his rage into something tangible, crafting a firearm that soon becomes infamous as the List, a grim ledger of names he's determined to erase from the world. Each name represents a target, a step further down a path where vengeance starts to blur with cruelty. What's tragic here is not just the loss of his family, but the loss of a young man who once believed in a brighter future for Whitestone. In his quest for retribution, Percy begins to lose himself, surrendering to the darkness that Orthax stokes with every act of violence. It's a heartbreaking reminder that sometimes, when tragedy strikes, the very tools we use to protect ourselves can become the chains that bind us.
You don't even see Percy, you just see a humanoid entity made of black, swirling smoke energy.
Percy's thirst for vengeance is the double-edged sword that drives his transformation. After the Briarwoods tore his world apart, Percy's heart became a battleground of grief and fury. Creating his firearm, he began etching names onto the List, a weapon that both symbolized and fueled his desire to see his enemies fall. With every target crossed off, his actions grew more brutal, and the dark presence of Orthax, the shadowy force linked to his weapon, crept ever deeper into his soul.
You fool, your soul is forfeit! Die! Die!
But it's not just the physical act of vengeance that defines Percy's struggle. It's the internal war raging within him. Every time he unleashes his wrath, Orthax's influence intensifies. That unholy power seems to mirror his inner turmoil, whispering that every act of violence justifies the next. In these moments, Percy's eyes come to burn with a feverish intensity, black smoke begins to billow around him, and a twisted version of himself emerges. A version that blurs the line between righteous retribution and unbridled cruelty. Yet even as Percy sinks deeper into this cycle, his internal conflict becomes painfully clear. He is forced to confront a harsh truth. The power he wields isn't entirely his own. It is a borrowed strength, one that feeds on his grief and magnifies his darkest impulses. He finds himself teetering on the edge, caught between the urge to obliterate his foes and the nagging realization that each act of vengeance only further cements Orthax's hold over him. At the same time, Percy isn't fighting this battle alone. His fellow adventurers in Vox Machina repeatedly remind him that there is another way, a way that doesn't involve losing oneself to darkness. Their interventions, whether in the form of a firm word or a quiet act of solidarity, underscore the fact that true strength isn't measured solely in the ferocity of one's retribution. These moments of camaraderie highlight a crucial counterpoint that while revenge might offer a temporary sense of power, lasting strength comes from embracing vulnerability and accepting help. The internal and external conflict is what makes Percy's journey so compelling. His struggle with Orthax isn't merely about controlling a dangerous force. It's about whether he can reclaim the part of himself that still believes in hope. Every confrontation forces him to question, is the path of unending vengeance worth the price of his own humanity? And can a man so consumed by hatred ever find redemption before he loses himself completely? In the end, Percy's battle isn't just with his enemies, it's with the darkness inside him. It's the relentless, painful realization that while his rage might momentarily fuel his power, it's the very source of his undoing. And this is the crux of his tragic struggle, the understanding that every step taken in the name of vengeance brings him closer to losing the man he once was.
As it kind of stands there for a moment, it begins to swell and grow larger, filling almost to the height of the 10-foot tunnel you guys are standing in, looming over Percy's body, still connected through his shadow and through the floor of the tunnel itself. It just kind of looms over, and as it peeks forward, you guys for the first time hear the voice that's been poking through him this entire time just say, "Percival, do it."
At the height of the chaos, in the midst of a brutal confrontation with the Briarwoods, Percy ultimately reaches a moment where everything seems to hang in the balance. In that maelstrom of violence and vengeance, he finds himself with his enemies cornered, yet instead of delivering a final, vengeful blow, something unexpected happens. His heart, battered by grief and rage, suddenly whispers a quiet truth. The very power he's been using is slowly consuming him. In that critical moment, as the rage and darkness swirl around him, Percy pauses. The world seems to slow down, and he realizes that Orthax, the sinister force that has been feeding on his hatred, isn't an external enemy at all. It is a part of him. It's the manifestation of every bit of fury and sorrow he's harbored since that fateful day in Whitestone. With this realization, the line between justice and personal annihilation blurs, and Percy knows that continuing down this path would mean losing himself entirely. So in a moment that is as painful as it is liberating, Percy makes a choice. As Orthax is encouraging, demanding that he kill Delilah Briarwood and then his sister Cassandra, he turns his firearm on himself. a symbolic, desperate act that shatters the cycle of vengeance.
Pull the trigger.
I take out my hammer.
Put it back, put it to her, put it back, maybe I will.
You're placing the gun against your own head.
And back to hers.
Oh, Jesus.
It's not about self-destruction, but about self-liberation. By rejecting the dark power that Orthax represents, Percy takes the first brave step toward reclaiming his own soul. In that instant, he chooses to let go of the endless pursuit of revenge, understanding that true power isn't measured by how many enemies you vanquish, but by the strength to control and confront your own inner demons. This led Percy to confront Orthax, who presented himself in a physical form, and as this physical confrontation unfolds, his allies, those who have stood by him through every trial, witness not just a moment of fury, but of profound clarity. And it is with the support of Vox Machina, Percy's friends, that Orthax is able to be literally and metaphorically defeated. Vox Machina's presence throughout Percy's struggles, their silent support, reinforces the idea that Percy is not alone, that his journey toward redemption is shared by those who care about him. This turning point isn't just about rejecting darkness, it's about realizing that the cycle of hatred can be broken, and that sometimes the hardest battle is the one you have to fight within yourself.
I am Percival Frederickstein von Musel Kowalski de Rolo III.
No kidding.
My ancestry dates back thousands of years and will continue for thousands more, unless Whitestone falls. I live as long as Whitestone lives.
Percy's journey isn't just about revenge, it's about learning to live with his past and the heavy responsibility it brings. After years of being consumed by grief and a burning desire for retribution, he reaches a point in the cycle of violence that finally forces him to confront the man he's become. For Percy, redemption isn't about erasing the darkness of his past, it's about accepting it and choosing a different path. In the aftermath of his most harrowing battles, he comes to realize that his strength isn't measured by how many enemies he can defeat, but by how he carries the weight of his own mistakes. This is where his transformation takes on a new meaning. The shift from a vengeful noble haunted by loss to a man determined to rebuild what was once broken. As he begins to reclaim Whitestone, though not rule it, Percy steps into a role that goes far beyond personal vendetta. He faces the immense challenge of leadership, a role that demands not only courage, but also humility and accountability. The people of Whitestone look to him for hope, and it's in this responsibility that he finds the true cost of his past actions. Every decision, every plan for rebuilding carries the memory of those he's lost and the knowledge that the darkness he once embraced can never fully vanish. In embracing this burden, Percy discovers that redemption is a long, often painful process. He must reconcile with his own guilt and learn to trust not just in his ability to exact revenge, but in his capacity to foster a better future. His journey teaches him that true leadership means accepting the consequences of your past and using them as a foundation for genuine growth. It means transforming a personal tragedy into a collective mission for healing. Percy's story then becomes a testament to the resilience of human spirit. It's a reminder that even when life is marked by unspeakable loss, the courage to rebuild can lead to something truly extraordinary. In the end, redemption in Percy's story isn't about erasing your scars, it's about letting them remind you of where you've been and guiding you toward a future where those scars become the marks of survival and leadership. Percy's journey is a profound testament to the resilience of the human spirit. From a young noble shattered by tragedy to a leader dedicated to his people's prosperity, Percy's evolution embodies the transformative power of confronting one's inner demons and embracing responsibility. Initially driven by vengeance against the Briarwoods, who decimated his family and seized Whitestone, Percy's quest for retribution led him down a dark path. His pact with the shadow demon Orthax granted him the means to seek vengeance, but at the cost of his own soul. This internal struggle between his thirst for vengeance and the remnants of his morality showcases the complexity of this character. The real turning point in Percy's arc is his confrontation with Orthax, symbolizing his battle against his inner darkness. By rejecting the demon's influence, Percy begins his path to redemption, understanding that true strength lies not in vengeance, but in the courage to rebuild and protect. His efforts to liberate Whitestone and assume leadership reflect his commitment to rectify past mistakes and honour his family's legacy. Percy's relationships further illuminate his growth. His bond with his sister Cassandra, strained by past traumas, yes, still evolves as they work together to restore their homeland. His dynamic with Vox Machina, especially with his future wife, Vexalia, highlights his journey from isolation to forming deep and trusting connections. Those relationships anchor him, providing the support and perspective needed to evolve from a haunted inventor to a wise leader. In essence, Percy's narrative is a celebration of redemption, resilience, and the enduring impact of compassionate leadership. It's a journey that encourages us all to find strength in vulnerability and lead with both intellect and heart.
I am content to make a clock tower and make art and never make another weapon. I'm good.